It's like being awake in a dream, like watching a movie play out in my mind. Other lives, other versions of me, existing across the multiverse, transmitting a message, a broadcast. Do you remember? We're all eternal, stars wandering through infinity, on a quantum journey back to self. Are you ready? Are you ready?
You are listening to Wandering Star Podcast. This is episode 8, Breath of Fire. If you are joining us for the first time, we are glad that you found us and thank you for being here. It is important to note that each episode certainly stands alone as a wonderfully profound story. However, if you would like to have a deeper experience, we invite you to listen to this podcast in order and allow yourself to join in the mystery as we follow the evolution of a single human being's soul to uncover the power and beauty that lies within each of us. Again, thank you for joining. Enjoy.
The glowing grid. Energetic currents flowing through dimensions, intricately weaving together a cosmic web of creation. Wandering souls ride the currents, venturing off into faraway galaxies. Radiant points of light form a pattern around me, like a constellation. I am a fragment of the pattern, waiting for others to join me so the pattern can be complete. I feel the pull. It's time to journey again. A piece of me always remains here, holding the light, waiting for others to find their way. I release from the grid and let the revolution begin. A ruby red apple. My small, pale fingers clutch it tightly. I look down at my small body. I'm a young girl, wearing a dark blue dress, a black coat, and black Mary Jane shoes. My auburn hair touches my shoulders. I have emerald green eyes, freckled cheeks. I look around me, searching for my mom. I see her a few feet behind me, putting fruit from a market stand in her basket. She looks at me and flashes a radiant smile. Her curly red hair is pulled up in a bun on top of her head. A long black coat over a scarlet ankle-length dress perfectly fit her thin, graceful frame. She grabs her basket and reaches for my hand. We walk down the cobblestone street, hand in hand, away from the markets. Horses pulling carriages clop by. The city street is bustling with activity. We walk past the rows of brick and brownstone houses until we arrive at ours. A 2-story brick row home with black shutters and a black door. Inside, the smell of wood burning in the fireplace greets us. My mom takes my coat and I run, loudly across the wide wooden plank floors into my dad's office. He's sitting at his desk writing. I run to him and he scoops me up and gives me a bear hug. His dark brown mustache tickles my neck. My mom walks in and he rushes towards her, sweeping her off her feet in a waltz around the room. They move with elegance. I love to watch them dance. Her back gracefully arches as he dips her and I erupt into cheer at their spontaneous performance. My dad gives me a bow, my mom a little curtsy and a wink. I ask for an encore, but my dad announces that sadly he must leave for work. He writes for the newspaper and works strange hours. He kisses us both, puts on his dark wool coat and black top hat, and bids us farewell. I spend my days mostly with my mom. We often go on long walks around the city. It's gray and cold outside most days, but we don't mind. We walk down the cobblestone streets and look in the shop windows. I like to watch the horses trot by and admire the fancy hats many of the women wear. Sometimes we walk to the sea. It's not too far away. We walk along a promenade and watch the waves crash upon the shore and the seagulls scavenge for food. Sometimes we bring scraps to feed them. We make up stories about the ships out at sea, and I wonder what it would be like to live on one of those big boats. It seems exciting and adventurous to live out on the open waters. I take a deep breath in through my nose. I love the salty smell of the sea. A few years pass by. My mom and I are holding hands and giggling as we walk home from the markets. I'm excited. She's going to bake a pie when we get home. My mom bakes the best pies. She's divulging her secret to her flaky crust as we troop up the steps to our house. She stops mid-sentence and freezes. The front door is cracked open. Unsure what is going on, I suddenly feel a pit in my stomach. She gingerly pushes the door open and tucks me behind her as we walk into the foyer. She calls out for my dad. Silence. She calls out again. Nothing but the creak of the wooden floors as we tiptoe down the hall. My stomach churns and flutters. We walk into my dad's office and my mom lets out a gut-wrenching scream. She urges me to go into the other room, begs me not to look, but I can't help it. My dad is sprawled out on the wooden floor, lifeless, blood pooled around his body. Somebody killed him. My mom throws herself on the floor next to him, holds his head in her lap, rocking back and forth. Her anguished wails bounce off the walls, trapped by the low ceilings, rattling my foundation. I watch in silence, a moment suspended in time. Suddenly, she stops crying and sits upright. A wild, panicked look washes over her face. She hops up and rushes to my dad's desk. I hear her mumbling under her breath as she rifles through his work papers. She's looking for something. Frantic, she opens the drawers and urgently combs through their contents. She still doesn't seem to find what she's looking for. With shaking hands, she gives up and calls the police. Policemen with tall, dark hats and big clubs on their hips arrive and speak with my mom. I hear their hushed whispers from my perch at the top of the stairs. I watch them put my dad on a stretcher and carry him out the door. The pit in my stomach begins to burn. I feel a fiery rage deep within me. I've been robbed of a father, the best father. Nothing will ever be the same. The burning swells up in my chest. I wonder if I scream, will the fire blow out of me like a dragon, scorching everything in its wake? I keep my mouth closed and watch as the policemen leave, and we're left in quiet despair. My mom sits on the floor in silence, staring at the wall. I think she forgot I'm here. I should be eating pie right now. My dad should be tucking me into bed soon. Instead, my life is ruined. I fidget with a loose thread on my sweater. A loud knock at the front door snaps my mom out of her daze. She heaves herself up with a groan and shuffles to the door. She opens it a crack and peeks out. I hear a deep voice and inch down the stairs on my butt to see who it is. I recognize him. He's someone important my dad knew. He's very rich and arrogant. Always dressed in fancy suits, hand-tailored for his short, portly frame. He has a white mustache that curls up on the ends and a white goatee. Thinning white hair sticks out beneath a black top hat. Beady dark eyes glare with suspicion behind rimless spectacles. A gold pocket watch on a chain drapes over his black vest. The governor. He expresses his sympathy and condolences. His tone is anything but sincere. Unable to feign concern for too long, he gets right to the point. He asks my mom for some papers from my dad's office. Says it's very important he have them. She stiffens. In a steely tone, she tells him she doesn't know what he's talking about. He presses again, asks if he can come in and look around. She briefly pauses, then opens the door, and he enters. I hide behind my mother. He gives me a creepy smile and pats my head as he lumbers by. In my dad's office, my mom watches him, her arms crossed, a tight-lipped scowl on her face. He's frantically shuffling through the papers on my dad's desk, but doesn't find what he's looking for. He's obviously desperate to find something. He asks if there's any other place my dad would keep his work papers. My mom shakes her head. His beady eyes examine her closely. She tells him it's late. He needs to go. Perturbed by his futile visit, he grumbles under his breath as he stomps out the door. My mom quickly locks the door and watches out the window as he climbs into his carriage and rides away. She lets out a loud exhale, slumps to the floor. I ask her what did my dad write that was so important that the governor came looking for it. She looks at me with exhaustion, tells me she doesn't know, but she's sure it's probably nothing. I don't believe her. She stares at the wall, lost in thought. She knew my dad was working on something significant, but he wouldn't tell her what it was. He said it was too dangerous. Lying in my bed that night, unable to sleep, the image of my dad's body on the floor is seared into my mind. I keep thinking about the papers my mom and the governor were looking for. I have a feeling I know where they are. I tiptoe down the stairs into my dad's office. I stand at his desk, heartbroken. I pick up the black quill pen he used to write with and brush it against my cheek. I run my hand over his pipe and lift it to my nose, breathing in the sweet smell. I can't believe he's gone. I turn to face the brick wall and run my hand over the bricks, pressing them gently. I used to spy on my dad. I thought it was fun. I saw him hide something one time, in the wall, behind a loose brick. I press the bricks until I feel one that wobbles. I carefully remove it and reach my hand into the small crevice. I feel something and gently pull it out. Rolled up papers with a skeleton key taped to them. They're covered in dust. I shake them off, then unroll them and smile at my dad's flowy cursive writing. There's a list of dates and times, like he was documenting something. I can't make much sense of it, but I know the information is significant. I close my eyes and ask my dad to show me more. I see him. It's a foggy, brisk night at the shipping port on the outskirts of the city. He's dressed in black, face concealed by a dark wool scarf. He's lurking in the shadows, smoking his tobacco pipe. A large ship is docking in the port. It's just about midnight. A brute man hauls several girls off the boat and shoves them into the back of a stagecoach. My dad scribbles something on his small notepad. Thick velvet curtains are drawn, concealing the passengers in the coach. Through a thin slit in the drapery, he catches a glimpse of a man, stroking his curled white mustache, his beady eyes ogling his merchandise. The governor. My dad uncovered a monumental scandal. The governor is trafficking young girls. A chill runs up my spine. I hold the skeleton key in my hand and ask my dad to show me where it came from. In a flash, I see my parents. My dad, dressed in a dapper suit. My mom in an elegant black ball gown. They're waltzing at a lavish party at the governor's mansion. The governor is drunk, stumbling around. My dad helps him to an armchair in a formal sitting room, away from the rest of the party. The governor passes out. My dad delicately pats him down, searching for anything that might help him expose the governor. He feels something in his breast pocket next to his pocket watch. He carefully pulls it out. A skeleton key. Certain it has something to do with the girls from the ship, he slips it in his pocket. He suspected the key opens a door to where the girls were being held captive, but before he could confirm his suspicion, he was murdered. I open my eyes. The fire in my stomach rages through my body. Vengeance ripples through my veins. I know what I must do. Years pass. I'm about 17. My mom has sunk into a deep depression. She rarely gets out of bed. I try to take care of her, but I've become obsessed with uncovering the truth. I have a job working in the governor's office. I laugh at his crude jokes. I bring him coffee. I pretend as though I find him fascinating. The truth is, he's a pig. He's vulgar and creepy. He insults the men and ogles the women. Nobody likes him. Many are afraid of him. Not me. I find him grotesque, obtuse, but I'm not afraid of him. I'm walking down the long corridor at the office when he corners me. He sneaks up behind me. His stubby hand presses me against the wall. He leans in, his red, pudgy face just inches from mine. The pungent smell of scotch lingers on his hot breath. His beady eyes bore into me. I can feel them undressing me. I ask him what he wants. He invites me to a party at his mansion, tells me to wear something attractive as he ogles my chest. This is the moment I've been waiting for, my invitation to his mansion. I smile sweetly and thank him, assuring him I'll be there. He grunts and shuffles down the hall. My hands shake with anticipation. Finally, a chance to find the lock that fits the skeleton key. The night of the party. Glamorous socialites arrive in stagecoaches. Women in dazzling ball gowns. Men in debonair suits with long waistcoats and black top hats. The mansion is striking in its grandeur. Servants bustle around with trays of champagne and canapes. A string quartet serenades the guests as they waltz and mingle in the elaborate ballroom. I'm wearing a black ball gown. My hair is pulled up in a bun, the skeleton key hidden beneath my auburn curls. I keep a watchful eye on the governor. I see his wife. She's thin, mousy. Her brown eyes are vacant. Her thin lips are pursed. She appears to be a miserable woman. I wonder if she's afraid of him. I wonder what she knows. I pretend to sip on some champagne and try to socialize with some people from work. I'm waiting for a moment to sneak away. The governor goes to the front of the room to welcome everyone. This is it. I move towards the back of the room and slink out the door. I casually walk through the hall's opening doors, looking for anything that appears suspicious. A butler finds me snooping, and I pretend to be looking for the ladies' room. At the end of a long, dimly lit hall, a heavy black door. I turn the handle and it opens. I peek in and see a spiral staircase that leads down to a basement. I gather my dress in my hand and rush down the stairs. At the bottom, it's dark, musty. The walls are lined with shelves stacked with bottles of wine and scotch, large bags of potatoes, sacks of flour. I run past the shelving towards the back. A narrow passageway curves around a corner to the boiler room. The boiler room is closed off by an iron gate. The gate is locked. I hear a faint whimpering from the back of the room. I whisper that I'm here to help. I pull the key out of my bun and fumble in the darkness, trying to fit the key in the lock. I whisper again, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt them. And then I smell it. The pungent stench of scotch. Hot breath panting on my neck. The governor. He whips me around and slams me against the wall, his stubby hand clenched around my neck. Through the darkness, I see a wild glimmer in his beady eyes. A thrill, a flash of excitement as if this is what he wanted all along. He says he always knew I was trouble, just like my dad. He snatches the key from my hand, opens the iron gate, and shoves me in the cage. In the pitch black, I see 3 sets of eyes watching me. Any hope of escaping is now lost. I tell them I'm sorry I failed them. I slump to the ground, fuming. A raging inferno swells within me. He keeps me locked in the cage for a long time. Other girls come and go. Vile men come and purchase them. Many of them want to buy me, but the governor says I belong to him. He won't let me go. He's obsessed with me. I'm the only one he abuses. I used to fight back. Now I'm just numb. After several years, he finally gets bored of me. A tall, lanky man with a long, sloped nose comes down to the basement. He tells the governor he wants to buy me. The governor tells him it's his lucky day. I'm finally for sale, but my price tag is much higher than the other girls. The man pulls a large bundle of cash out of his pocket and hands it to the governor, a piggish grin on his pudgy face. He opens the cage and throws me at the buyer. We ride out of the city in a stagecoach. The thick velvet curtains are drawn. I haven't been outside in years. The light of day sears my eyes. I push a curtain to the side and peek out at the sea. We travel for almost an entire day. The man with the long nose doesn't speak a word. We arrive at a large white house, a few miles outside a seaside village. There's no other houses close by. Lights from the village shimmer in the distance. He takes me inside and leads me upstairs to my room. It's spacious, with shiny, polished wood floors, immaculate white walls, large bay windows that look out to the sea. There's a large bed in the center of the room. I turn to face him. He won't look at me. Staring at the floor, he gruffly tells me to settle in and come down and make him dinner. I cook for him. I clean his large house. I stare out the windows at the sea. It doesn't make sense. He doesn't speak to me. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't ever lay a hand on me. I don't understand why I'm here. We're sitting at the dinner table in silence. I tell him I want to leave. There's no point in me being here. He says nothing. Again, I tell him I want to leave. Silence. I jump out of my seat and scream at him, calling him names. He clenches his fists, his temper beginning to flare, then slams them down on the table and lifts his head, looking me square in the eye. In a low, somber voice, he tells me he bought me to save me from the governor. He knew what the governor was doing. The governor would get drunk and boast about it to his wealthy friends. Many of them participated. Those that didn't were too scared to speak up for fear of being blackmailed or killed. The man with the long nose thought if he bought me, he could help me. He didn't know what else to do. I stare at him in shock. Speechless, I stand up and go to my room. A couple of years pass by. The man with the long nose brought me back to the city. He didn't want to, but I made him. Over time, we've become friends. Over time, I began to trust him. I told him I won't rest until the governor pays for what he did. I'm standing under a lamppost late at night. A misty haze settled over the city. The hood on my dark coat hangs low over my face. Across the street, the governor's mansion. My hand is in my pocket, gripping a knife. I feel the fiery burn inside me, the fury waiting to be released. I want to kill him. I also want to expose him, make him pay for what he's done. The light mist turns to a steady rain. I loosen my grip on the knife and walk away. Retribution is coming. Sitting with my mom in my old house, she's much older and frail. Crying, she hugs me tight. I hold her close and tell her I'll take care of her now. A loud knock at the door interrupts our reunion. Knife in my hand, I open it a crack to see who it is. It's the man with the long nose. He looks relieved to see me. He was worried about what I might do, worried I would get hurt, so he came back to check on me. I let him in and give him a hug, grateful he's here. I think I can use his help. Once my mom is asleep, we sit in my dad's office and devise a plan. Death is too kind a punishment for everything the governor has done. As much as I want to unleash a fiery vengeance upon him, I know exposing his secrets is a punishment far worse for him. The following night, the man with the long nose goes to the governor's mansion. Frantic, he tells him I ran away and that I threatened to expose them all. He begs the governor to help him look for me, insists that I be stopped. Their secret must be protected. The governor agrees, and they climb in the carriage and leave. From across the street, I watch them disappear into the night, then sneak to the back of the mansion and slip in through a window. I pause, listening. Nothing but silence. His wife must be sleeping. I find a phone and dial for the police. I pretend I'm the governor's wife. Hysterically, I tell them there's an emergency at the governor's mansion and they must come quickly. I hang up the phone and hide in the shadows, anxiously waiting for them to arrive. At last, a pounding at the door. I hear the police calling out. I rush to the front door and let them in before his wife wakes up. I tell them to follow me. I lead them down the spiral staircase and back to the boiler room. A policeman lights a torch, holds it up to the cage. Huddled in the back corner, 4 girls cower in fear. The men break open the lock and I rush in to help the girls out. Upstairs, the governor's wife is outraged that I broke in and demands the police arrest me too. She doesn't care about the girls held captive in her basement. She doesn't care that her husband is a rapist. She knew all along. The governor comes back and the police are waiting for him. He's drunk and belligerent, yelling and lashing out. He glares at me. As they walk him out the door, he lunges at me and whispers in my ear. He tells me he's going to kill me, just like he killed my dad. The man with the long nose and I leave in his carriage and go get my mother. We take her out of this city, away from the painful memories of the past, to live in the large white house by the sea. A few years pass. I'm walking along the water's edge, holding my daughter's hand. I married the man with the long nose. It's not a marriage of true love and passion, but a marriage of friendship and companionship. I really wanted a child. The man with the long nose has been kind and caring to us both. My mother passed away peacefully in her sleep. She got to meet her granddaughter before she died. We walk up the steps onto the front porch and I freeze. The door to the front of the house is cracked open. I squeeze my daughter and tell her to run to the trees behind our house, to wait for me there. I call out for my husband. Silence. Push the door open and edge inside. I call out again. Silence. The wooden floors creak beneath my feet. A trail of blood trickles down the hallway. I inch forward into the living room and see him, sprawled out across the floor, lifeless, a knife sticking out of his chest. Behind him, the governor sits in a chair casually smoking a pipe, an amused smirk on his face. So, you have a daughter, he hisses. The burning pit in my stomach. Our eyes are locked. My fists are clenched. The fire scorches my chest. I feel as though I will explode. Abruptly, he jumps out of the chair and lunges towards me. I race towards the kitchen. He's faster than I thought. He grabs my waist and pushes me up against the counter, tries to rip off my dress. My hand searches the counter for a weapon. I feel the steel blade of a kitchen knife and grip it tightly. The dragon rises within me and I let out an explosive roar as I drive the knife into his back. He stumbles back, looks at me with a mix of amusement and surprise. He laughs and spits in my face, reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a revolver. I kick it out of his hand and it slides across the floor. I dive across the room to the gun. He charges at me. With a steady hand, I point it at his chest and pull the trigger. His beady eyes widen with disbelief. He staggers backwards, then collapses with a thud, gasping for air. I watch in silence as he takes his last breath. I calmly walk over to him and spit on his face. I race outside to the trees behind our house to find my daughter. She's sitting under a tree playing with a loose string on her coat. I hold her close and tell her it's okay. It's all over now. The breath of fire unleashed at last. We move away from the big white house to a small village by the sea. Time passes. I'm an older woman. My auburn hair is graying. My hands are wrinkled. I'm sitting near a cliff with someone I love deeply. He's holding my hand. We're gazing out at the sea. A beacon of light sweeps across the dark waters. A white lighthouse with a pale blue stripe sits on a cliff. I look over at the man I'm sitting with. His kind blue eyes smile at me. I know him. He wraps the shawl around my shoulders and we walk towards our home. A cottage with a green mossy roof and a blue door. I've been here before. Our love is so profound, so eternal. We die together, peacefully, in sleep, laying in each other's arms. We drift away. Our souls rise together. 2 lights soaring high, we spin and loop around each other, a cosmic dance. Dolphins leap across the shimmering sea below. And then we pause, hovering high above the lighthouse, a moment suspended in time. In a flash, we merge into one, a divine union of souls, destined for unification. We rise as one, a beacon of light ascending to the heavens.
Back again. I'm Keisha. I am the facilitator and guide during these sessions, joined by my co-host Hillary, who is the writer, narrator, and the experiencer of these stories that you're listening to.
Welcome back, everyone. We are happy to be back again with Breath of Fire here. Slight turn after that last one. It was funny because after that last one, I was like, oh my God, what's going to come next? Like more crazy stuff that I have no idea how to interpret.
Right.
But this one, especially, I got to be honest, especially with the writing process, because the last one was like a bit of a doozy for me to write. And this one, I was like, okay, this is a fairly straightforward story. I can do this. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty easy one to write after that last one, which took a serious toll on me. But yeah, so Breath of Fire, back again as a girl, as a female. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that the absolute first thing that I saw coming into this one was an apple, a ruby red apple. And then I realized that I'm this little girl and I'm with my mom, and it was like, I got like, either like a big city in like London or Dublin. Those were like the vibes that I was getting from this setting, coming into this one. And, you know, we're walking down these cobblestone streets, and it was like pretty clear that I had a pretty great life as like the early part of this one, you know. Mm-hmm. My parents were wonderful. They were like super in love and fun, and then everything just, you know, takes a turn, as it does in most of these. So,
I have to say, though, that even though that is obviously true, it's interesting because in the beginning where you're walking and it's kind of gloomy, and I wasn't getting the same, like there was still like a little bit of a gloominess to it in the beginning, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right.
Yeah, certainly the setting was like raining and cold, and you know, that like there was that. I feel like maybe there was like an undercurrent of heaviness, mm-hmm. but there was definitely a lot of love between my parents and then me as well, mm-hmm. you know, and my parents. Like there was that safety and this love.
I don't think that you were not really feeling that. I think I was just trying to, I was getting that little bit of a vibe, but I don't think you were, because you were much more focused on the love of your parents, because it was very strong. I was just mm-hmm. sharing that for me. I felt like it was like not as much like that, because I think it's a good example of I'm experiencing like this bigger picture, and
right,
you're experiencing in the moment that you're in.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes with all of these. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, there was a lot about this one that I did not piece together until the very end, mm-hmm. Just because I was so focused on what's happening next, whereas you had an understanding or an idea about what was happening pretty early on.
Yeah, I didn't know if I didn't want to spoil it if we weren't to that point yet, but I guess I should just say. So We
may as well just get there straight out of the gate.
Yeah, I guess we may as well just get there straight out of the gate. So as soon as you were walking with your mom and it was gloomy and you were talking about how you like to go down to the sea and watch the ships come in, I instantly thought, is this where the two come together, the pirate life? Is this mm-hmm. where they come together? I immediately thought that because this was the first time that you were seeing ships, first of all. You were in that same part of the world, it seemed, somewhere in that part of the world. And so right away I had this, is this it? And I've been waiting for this moment too. So,
yeah.
But come to find out, you didn't put any of this together until very close to the end, and the whole time.
No.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, not even with like the girls and coming off the ships in the cage.
No.
And, you know, I wonder like how many people are listening that may not have pieced this together, because it is. It's so, you know, like, as I always wondered, okay, so when we get to the pirate life, am I just going to like, you know, come in and I'm going to know right away that like, this is the life? Because we have no idea. Like, if you look at that pirate life, we're witnessing, or I experience, let's say, like a half an hour of that life.
Right.
If, you know, to an hour maybe. Mm-hmm. Right. And most of it was just like pure terror. But in terms of like, what I know about that life, mm-hmm. like, I don't know what that girl's life was prior to that. Mm-hmm. You know, did I come off of a boat?
Right.
Was I running from my home? Mm-hmm. We don't know anything about it. All we know is that little snippet of me, you know, with my sister, trying to escape them. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So we don't know any other details about that life.
Right.
And, yeah, no, it did not occur to me at all. Like, I didn't even think about any of the similarities mm-hmm. until I saw the lighthouse at the end. And then it like took my breath away. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit, I've been here before. Mm-hmm. I know what this is.
Yeah.
So I wonder how many people were listening to the story sort of remembered that lighthouse and the stone cottage with the mossy roof and the blue door. Mm-hmm. You know, I tried to just like write in a few things that would be little like triggers, little reminders, little memories about that first episode. But like I like had no idea until the end. And then I was like, wait, so what the hell was that? Like, here we are again, where it's just like, man, this stuff is wild. The way it shows up and the way it comes together.
Yeah, because
is like,
because I did believe that when, like I said, from the beginning. And so to witness you in this moment, telling me this story where everything that you're telling me, I'm becoming more and more and more convinced that this is it. This is the joining place. And to be in the moment and witnessing how this is going to unfold for you was probably the most wild moment of all of these for me, because I knew this, and I was like watching it was like I was watching your dream unfold for you, you know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and thinking
that's crazy.
Yeah, like it was like witnessing this, like this information coming through in a whole different way in this one for me, because I knew what was going to happen in the end. Yeah. For the first time ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
It was so beautiful. Right. And when you said the lighthouse, I've been here before. I could cry again right now, because that again was another amazing thing to witness. When you had that realization yourself, it was one of the most beautiful moments for me. Almost as powerful, probably very close to as powerful as watching your son travel the grid.
On the grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we threw that out there, mm-hmm. It's great. Like, looking at this life, okay, so it's like I said, to me, it seemed like there was a lot of happiness and joy and love in the beginning before my dad was murdered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as that happened, everything changed. And it was like, I just like pivoted towards this like revenge. To me, when I was writing this one, that was like, I could like feel the revenge, like boiling in my blood almost as I was writing it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, yeah, like this governor, right? This vile, vile man is the same energy again as the pirate with the gold tooth,
Mm-hmm.
as the Egyptian father, as the leader of the army, as the the bishop in the last one, you know. So this man, this energy has been coming after me for a long time. And so in this one, I got to unleash all of this pent up anger, all of this stuff that I've carried for all of these lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was really fun. I got to say, it was like really fun to write this from that sort of like revenge perspective, right? Of like, I can feel it in me now when I'm talking about it. Like, and so that's like when I was thinking about this one, I'm thinking about this like fire inside of this girl,
Mm-hmm.
right? That starts when she's a kid and she's like, knows that there's something off and creepy about the governor right away. And then it just like becomes her purpose. Like she puts herself directly in the path of danger just so she can expose and take down this disgusting man, right? Like she gets a job working for him just so she can, you know, sort of like finish what her dad started. And then she gets thrown into a cage. And again, it's like even in that moment when I was like locked in a freaking cage with some other girls, I had no idea that it was like a very, very similar to the pirate life. But it's like, and I think you and I were talking about this one sometime within the last few days, I think. And it was like, to me, so like this one, okay, all this fire, all this rage is burning inside of her. And it's like this dragon inside of her was what I kept thinking about when I was writing it, right? It's just like building and building and building through all of these lives. Like she killed him once in the Amazonian life, but the energy didn't go away. He's still lurking around. And in this one, there wasn't any fear of him. There wasn't any of that like savior complex type behavior either. This like obviously I was like wanting to free the girls from the cage, but it wasn't this like mission based on me feeling like I need to go and save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It was purely driven by like just pure revenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel this just like anger and hatred for this man, for taking away her father, for ruining her life, for doing what he's doing to these girls, for being an absolute piece of shit, for sure. Mm-hmm. You know, but I wasn't approaching it from that same perspective as when I was first in that pirate life.
Right.
You know, so I think it's pretty interesting when you look at them like side by side. That first one was fueled by this need to save everyone and this feeling like when something didn't go right, that everything is all my fault and I just need to like beat myself up and weep in the corner. This one was just like rage, you know, pure rage. And yeah, it was really fun to write from that perspective.
That's amazing though. Like that's incredible. And think about the one that we just came out of, like the end of that one. It's like, why didn't you destroy? Why didn't you have that revenge? And you come in this one like full on, like ready to go, like fully
right.
One, like that was your main focus coming into this one. And the last one, there was none of that, not an inkling of that. Mm-hmm.
Right. This one, there was that like desire for the truth, but there was also this like, no, I'm going to take this dude down.
Mm-hmm.
At first I felt like death would be too kind for him. I wanted him to be exposed. I wanted people to know what he was doing. So that death wasn't the first option on the table for me. I certainly was like, lurking outside of his house, like glaring at him with a knife in my hand. Like I would have been more than happy to run inside and like slit his throat or something. But I was, saying, no, death is too kind for this man. He needs to be exposed. He needs to pay for what he's done. And so that's when like the man with the long nose and I come up with our little plan on how to, get him out and expose him for what he's done. But then it's like, we don't really know why he got out of jail. I just assume because he was like wealthy and powerful and he just bought his way out of jail or whatever. And, then he comes back to find me in the end. And then of course, like I had no choice but to kill him. And, and so it was like, I looked at that. This one is like, I finally got to slay the dragon. I finally got to take down this energy, this man that's been coming after me through all of these lives. Right. And then this one, it was like, enough, I'm done. And I think in like another one of these, I had mentioned briefly something about me as a kid, always like being really quiet and keeping my emotions to myself. And so I feel like that was another part of this that was like easy for me to really like feel the feelings of having all of this anger inside that you're not expressing, because it really just builds up. It's like a fire in your gut, and then you just like, I would do that. I would snap on like, oh God, on my sisters all the time. It happened when we were kids and it was like the dumbest thing would happen. And I would just go berserk because I never spoke up about anything that I was feeling. And so then like it just comes out sideways, and like forget about it. When I was drinking, that shit would come out in like the weirdest ways and people would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? And it was like, but I just picture it as me just like opening my mouth and having all of this fire just like blazing out and like scorching everything in its wake. And so it was easy for me to sort of capture that when I was writing it, because I just felt like this anger from this girl through all of these lifetimes has been carrying it. And then it was just time to unleash it.
Yeah.
On that governor. It was time for him to go.
Yeah. It was the time for you to, only the second time that you've murdered someone and both times you're a female.
Yes. Very interesting, isn't it?
It's very fascinating. And so I kind of see this one as, like that first one, like you were saying, like you should have killed the guy in the first place and you didn't.
Right. Right. And that happens in both of them too. In both of these instances where I finally killed a man, I try to let them go, like not let them go, but I, sent the leader of the army in the Amazonian life off into the jungle. Like I didn't kill him, even though I knew that I probably should, because everybody would think that I was like, a good leader if I did, but I didn't. I let him go. And then he came back and killed my husband. And then it was like, all right, screw you. Now I am going to kill you.
Right.
And then the same in this one, it was like, I probably easily could have slipped in his house and killed him right away. But it was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let the legal system sort it out.
Oh, shit.
And then that shit didn't work because he was, I'm guessing, too wealthy and powerful to stay in jail.
Right.
And then he comes after me again. And it's like, again, like, okay, gave you a chance and you ruined it. So now I have to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, right. For a moment there, you did just explain that, but I forgot that for a moment there that, like I was just thinking, about killing this man was like your mission. And you didn't, like with the last man that you killed, it was self-defense,
Right. Right.
But this one, it was, I love how you say you loved writing this one because you can just feel that. And my point really is to fully finally be able to embrace that, which is necessary for survival also. And
yes.
And to like fully embrace that is incredible power. Because I think maybe there's like this weird thing happening in my brain right now because I'm thinking about the last one and I'm thinking like, this, like you not having any part of that revengefulness in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming in and that's what you, it's almost like how I was saying I wasn't able to read the book until I understood that other thing first.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of that for some reason. Like,
mm-hmm.
And it's just coming to me just now, so it doesn't make complete sense, but this is a necessary tool for you to have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It was. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's, sorry, I just had like a moment of like being transported into a different one of these stories because like sometimes things will pop into my head and I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Mm-hmm. That happens to me quite often, honestly.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and it's interesting to me. Okay, so I finally like I take care of this guy, once and for all.
Mm-hmm.
And the man with the long nose in this one is like an interesting character to me
mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because so it's like this is like his way of saving me was buying me from the governor, right?
Right.
And so then it was like at first I think that like I wasn't like impressed with that gesture. It was just like you could have found a different way,
mm-hmm.
but okay. And then we became friends and eventually were married and then he's the one that comes back and helps me with our little plot to expose the governor. But then it was like I knew, like I met in the session I was telling you, it was like, there wasn't this like deep love with the man with the long nose. It was like a friendship. It was like a marriage of, companionship, convenience. I wanted a kid, I think. So that was like helpful to have him around so that I could have my daughter. But there certainly wasn't, again, it's like, it's like it's like all these other relationships that I've had in pretty much every life leading up to this one. You can go through like every single one of them. The one in Africa, the wife that I, like in the life, sure, I loved these people, but as me, the experiencer, there's never been any feelings or clear visual images of any of these characters mm-hmm. up until the very end of this one. I mean, I could see the man with the long nose pretty clearly, but I definitely don't have a like super lovey vibe about him, but like in all of those other marriages, there's no feelings. There's no image of these people. Yet in the story, I'm telling you like, oh, I love this person. Like my wife's great, whatever. And then we get to this one and it's like, okay, so, the man with the long nose is cool, also slightly problematic, but in the end, he turns out to be a good guy. And then he gets killed. And I finally kill the governor, slay the dragon. And then we skip ahead. And this is just so wild to me. Like this ending is so crazy to me. Where it was like, okay, I moved into this new village or whatever. And I was just like sitting looking out at the sea. And I think one of the first things I said to you before I even saw the lighthouse or anything, I think I said to you, I'm sitting with somebody that I really love.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And when I told you that, mm-hmm. I like could feel it. Mm-hmm. Like I could feel that love for the first time.
And this is the moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, she still doesn't put it together.
Still didn't get it.
Yeah.
Still didn't get it.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I'm like looking down and I see my hand and it's like, old and kind of wrinkled. And there's another, like a hand of an older man, like holding mine. And then I look out at the lighthouse and I was like, shut up. Wait, what? And I look at him and it's the freaking lighthouse worker. And it's like, well, that was my grandfather the first time around. Like, I don't even know what's going on with this whole thing. I truly don't. Like,
well, obviously. No, just kidding.
My God. You're going to hear me saying that like over and over again as we go through the last, 5, 6 of these. It's like, what? So yeah, it was like those kind eyes. I mean, it was like, truly a moment that took my breath away where I'm just like, Same. Wait, the lighthouse worker?
Same.
Mm-hmm. And then we die together? Mm-hmm. And then we turn into one light? Like, what? I don't even know.
It's so amazing. Like, I can see, like, this is something that one of the topics I really think that we need to dive into really deeply, maybe in a YouTube video or something where we just focus on the convoluted mystery of your relationship with the lighthouse worker. Like that we could go so deeply just into that with these 2 sessions. With the the first one and this one.
I mean, he's the one that kind of like started everything off with his message.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is what we're doing. Like, that's the point.
The message being, it's your job to show the light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
be the light.
Yeah. When I came... Yeah. Be the light and show the light. And like 2 days ago, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea, and we're like starting to talk about this one. You and I are having these conversations, and that one brand of tea, I forget, that always has those little like quotes on the little like tea bag thing. I look at them every time and I save them if I really like them. And this one was, be the light, be the lighthouse. It's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
That was like 2 days ago or whatever.
Yeah, like right before. Yeah, it really was, because I had to send you the picture, of course. Like, we're getting ready to talk about the lighthouse again, and here we are.
Yeah,
and that. Go ahead, because I'm confused at the moment.
Well, I just think it's funny because I remember when we were talking about this the first time, I was writing in my little notebook where I write some notes down about what parts we're going to discuss. And I'm like doodling while we're talking. And then I don't even notice until maybe, I don't know, a while into our conversation that I'm doodling on this page that has a lighthouse in the bottom corner of it. And I take a picture of it. It's just little things like this that are constantly happening where it's
a reminder.
A reminder. Yes, exactly. And so maybe I think I'm going to share this little personal thing that I take from this, because we've tried to we've tried to figure out how to put all of these pieces together, and or the most important parts, but there's so many, just like we're talking about now. So when Hillary did the first session, the pirate one, that very day, I think it was just, I don't know, a couple hours later, I shared with you that Instagram post that I put, and it was this short little thing that I wrote about, I was in meditation and it was in 2019. It was before I was even doing this work. And I had this little past life glimpse where my head was being pressed against this ship. I knew I was in the belly of a ship. And Hillary knew nothing about this before her session. And I knew that there was a lot of women in the bottom of the ship, and this man was It feels like it's so weird. Like right now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this feels personal to me. And it's like, you've just like, we're on episode 8 and we're hearing all of these things. And I'm in this moment, like, I don't even feel right saying this. So bizarre.
This is like a full-blown therapy session for me.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
Broadcasting.
And I don't even, oh my gosh. This is a really funny moment for me because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to do this thing that Hillary's been doing this entire time.
Time to get personal, Keisha.
So, yeah, I have this experience and I'm being raped, and this man is not going to stop until I show that I enjoy it. I have to actually get pleasure out of him raping me for him to stop. And I successfully do that. And then I'm thrown off the ship. And in my story, I was grateful to be eaten by sharks. And it was very, it was kind of the same, when the dolphin came, it was the same thing. But in the end of it, it was, I'd rather be eaten alive by sharks than by man. And,
right.
And so, and in this real life, I have a very irrational fear of sharks. And so when I had this experience in this past life glimpse or meditation, I thought that answered my question to why I didn't ask myself the question in the moment, but came out of that and I was like, oh wow, that's why I'm so afraid of sharks. You would think that I wouldn't be afraid of sharks, but it's that in that moment, it was like, anyway, I shared this with you after your pirate session. And what is the most fascinating about this to me is, maybe not the most, but this is also very fascinating, that this is where the two come together. The pirate life comes, this is like full circle at this point. And this is the first time in all of these, because I always ask you in your subconscious after what we've seen, does anybody feel familiar? And there are always people that feel familiar. But this is the very first time that you said that you've believed that one of the girls in the cage was me. And
yep.
So it's so wild to me that only a couple days ago I put this together, where I was like, wow, this is where episode 1 comes together full circle. And it's also the first time where you and I are both in the same one.
Yep. Yeah, it's like I can still kind of see this girl's eyes in the back of the cage, and they're definitely your eyes. Like, yeah.
Yeah, so how does that work? If anybody has any answers to how this works, we would.
How does that work? Dude, trust me. If anybody can clarify what's going on with the lighthouse worker too, I would greatly appreciate it. Because I don't have a damn clue.
Yeah, because I know that plenty of people would probably be thinking at this point, wait, but I thought he was her grandfather, and I thought he was also her grandfather.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have no idea what's going on. I think I've made that clear by now. I don't have a damn clue. But I mean, it's part of what's so cool about all of this, is like, it truly is like decoding these little things and these messages and trying to figure out what exactly is happening. Although in every single one of them, it's like we said last time, I think it was the last one, where it's just like, I know, but at the same time, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because what was the message in the last one about the resonance, the Matthias message? Yeah,
Matthias / Gabriel's message.
Yeah.
It's not about the words, it's the resonance followed, like you have to pay attention to the resonance.
Yeah, so I mean, we could go on forever about this, I think this is one that we should definitely explore more deeply in other places. Because we could, I think that it, like, obviously the lighthouse worker that's love, right? That resonance is like pure love. And so there could be like this, you and I have this ability to connect on a certain resonance because of maybe that type of fear we've both experienced. And so maybe that's also a part of why number one showed up in the way that it did, because it was something that both of us are bringing on a certain, who knows? I mean, there's a million different ways to look at this, because I'm not going to get into this at all, but I did a session with Emily, Hillary, your sister, and Emily's session was in this same part of the world. And there are many things that are very similar and energetically similar, or the resonance could be similar.
Wait, wasn't she like married to a governor?
No, the governor
or something.
The governor was married to her mother.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I knew there was a governor involved.
He was a very similar governor to this governor.
This governor.
Yeah, so she was not married to him, but he was in her life in a very similar way to this governor. He had the same vibes.
Right.
And so
same governor vibes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so how does that, like, so all of the people that show up, I mean, whatever, it's like that message. It's about the resonance. And the message comes through in this way to be able to actually have a language for the resonance, is what I believe.
I love that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
It's beautiful. It's amazing.
So I just had this thought come into my head. We hadn't talked about this, but I was thinking that it might be, not that we have to wrap this up now, but I just want to throw this out there as something that we should maybe explain a little bit just like moving forward through these, because now things are gonna like change a little, not change, but like, so okay, in this one at the end the two lights become one, right? And then what we're going to do moving forward is the lights then are going to split on the, like, when up on the grid, and then they're going to split. So then we're going to follow this split from here on out. So I thought that this might be helpful for us just to throw this out there now, because things are it's gonna like kind of take a little bit of a twist here. So in this one, it was like, okay, me and the lighthouse worker, we die. And we have these two lights at the end that I wrote about that go up into the sky and then combine and become one. And then that light goes shooting up to the grid. And then once that light is up on the grid for a while and we go into the next life, we're going to split. That light is going to become two lights again and then split off. And so we're going to follow two different paths, basically, from here on out. So I just thought it might be helpful to throw that out there in advance before we get into that next week, just to give people a heads up, because I think it could get a little bit confusing for some of these going forward. Potentially. I tried to write it in a way that it's not, and of course we'll be talking about it, but I just thought that might be a helpful heads up for moving forward, is that we're going to start following these two lights, basically, and where they go. Yeah. Which is pretty fun.
It's amazing. So exciting.
It is. It's pretty amazing. What else? Any other thoughts on this one for you? This is one that I'm super curious to hear from people about too. Like, did you pick up on anything in the story? You know, did you understand that this was sort of like the return to the pirate, you know, even at the end with the lighthouse? Because we've let some people listen to it and they had no idea.
Right.
And I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because I just thought, because we explained this is an experiment that we're doing to see how you ended up in the belly of that pirate ship. So because you're right, a few people that we shared this with, I don't know that any of them put this together so far. Not that we shared it with a ton of people, but the few that I shared it with, they didn't put it together because of, certain things not making sense. Like that was your grandfather specifically, especially, but, shoot, I just kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, I think that it was so obvious. It's so obvious for you and I because we've been waiting for this moment the entire time. And also because for you and I, the resonance is obviously there while we're doing the session in the moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
right. Absolutely.
In the moment, like when you're reunited with the lighthouse worker, that is so real in that moment. And it's so real that I can feel it, And so that to you and I is obviously the same place, the same person. It's so obvious to us, but I can imagine how if I were just hearing this story and I'm not having the emotional experience, my logical brain is not going to make sense. It's going to not make sense.
Right. No, it didn't, because it doesn't make much sense to the logical brain whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So, I think that's about it, though. I think it would be great to hear what other people think. And I'm truly curious as, if people do put this, did you put this together when you were listening to the story or not? Even if we just get like an idea of people, I would just love to know. I'm super curious.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
Very much same. All right. Well, that concludes Breath of Fire. And so, okay, but obviously, so we've kind of figured, okay, we came full circle back to the pirate life, but we were obviously not going to stop here. Right? It was like, so that was sort of our intention from the get-go, was to find out what had to happen to get me here. But then once we got here, it wasn't like we were like, oh, okay, we got it now. That's enough. I think we keep going.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of the reason why is because when you went back to Source immediately, because the two of you died together, so you experienced love, true love, for the first time. And so I think that because when you went back to Source and your souls combined, it was like, no, we can't stop here. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. Right.
And what happens now?
There was no way.
There was no possible way. So, yeah.
Now, we were like, now what the hell is going on? Like, what?
Right. Seriously.
I remember being so eager to do another one because I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. And gosh, the next story is just really incredible. So I'm excited for people to hear it next week.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah. The rest of them, like these last ones that we're moving into, are just so fantastic. I absolutely love them. So I'm really excited for people to hear them because they were so fun to write. They were so fun to experience. And I hope people love them as much as I do.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening.
See you next week.
Ciao for now.